I'm just confused about how you dissolve the Himalayan salt in water, because it took me like a week for it to dissolve. Well, it never dissolved. Oh, does that mean something? It never dissolved. Are you meant to dissolve it or just stick it in water and then drink it?
To be honest, I've never really noticed if it does dissolve. I would just put, if I don't often have the Himalayan salt and water. I don't, it's something that people can do, but when I do it, I just stir it up and drink it. I don't really notice if it's
But mine is quite chunky. It's sort of like
you've got the chunky stuff. Yeah, you might have to have warm water.
Okay.
So maybe a little bit of boiling water or something to start with, and then top it up with hot water.
Right, but I've been doing adding, because I never added salt, like you said in one thing, that old people don't, because they're so terrified of salt, which is true. And I thought, crumbs, I don't want to harden any more arteries, and at my age, and so I've been grinding the pink salts on everything, and I feel tons better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, look, the top part of every one of my protocols, this is why I talk about water and salt and hydration and grounding, because once I've done nearly 10,000, well, I've done over 10,000 clients now over 10 years. And the first section of any recommendations I do, the grounding, the salt, the borax, some hydration with some salt, you're going to turn people's lives around just by doing that, let alone anything else. So it can be fantastic. And I've also worked, over the years, I'll get a phone call, I'll get messages from people that say, I can't do the testing, can you help me? And I go, okay, well, I'd ask a couple of questions, and more often than not, a lot of them have been older people, and they say, they've got no energy, they've got no this going on. I say, do you eat salt? Oh, I don't eat salt because my husband, he died 10 years ago, and the doctor said he eats too much salt, so I don't eat salt. I said, well, go and start drinking about 5 grams of salt per day, mix it with some water, and let me know how you go. And they'll go away and come back 2 weeks later, and they'll treat me like I'm a god. Oh my God, Mark, that's how simple it can be, because you're bringing in the electrolytes, you're giving your body that conduit for energy to flow. And that's why it's so important right at the top to have it's electrolyte deficiency, having those electrolytes. If we don't have that, if we don't have the conduit right at the beginning, which is why it's number one, there's no point doing anything else, because the power switch isn't turned on. So it's fantastic that you're feeling that difference.
Yes, and I also got some of those drops, the concentrates drops, and I didn't know if I should do that as well, or is that too much?
Only with any sort of minerals, you want to be doing the minerals during digestion, during a meal.
Oh, okay.
So because now, why is this so? Because just think about it. Amino acids you can take on an empty stomach, but with the minerals, we want to have full digestive chemistry going on for you to be able to maximize the assimilation of those minerals. Okay, now when you're taking the mineral drops, they're already ionic, they're already charged, so you're already increasing your chances by 30% anyway. But no, always take the minerals during a meal, and then you maximize the ability of the body to be able to uptake. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, the average person, if I was to wave a wand and give you a perfectly brand new digestive system right now, you're still only going to pick up 35 to 40% of the minerals, the nutrition that you're bringing anyway. The rest of it's wasted. It'll go out the back end. We're like a very inefficient diesel engine. We're already behind the 8 ball. So we must do the utmost we can do to be able to maximize that uptake, because that's where it's at. That's where a lot of the problems are with people. It's the fact that they're either not getting the minerals in the first place, or they've got digestions out of whack. They haven't got the acidity or the alkalinity of the bile, or the acidity of the stomach acid, or the alkalinity of the pancreatic enzymes. Somewhere there. Yeah, and if you test people's pHs, you'll know their pHs are out. If their pHs are out, you know that in the digestive tract, especially in the small intestines, that you haven't got total body pH. You haven't got you're too far away from 6.4. And if you're too far away from 6.4, we just think about this for a minute. Minerals are assimilated are picked up by the body through electromagnetism.
Yeah.
And what impacts on electromagnetism? pH. It's a direct correlation. It's immediately you change pH, you'll either change the pull, or you'll pull too much, or you pull too little. So yeah, so that's why it's important to take it through digestion, because you will have, or at least you should have, as close as possible to that digestive, enough hydrochloric acid, enough bile, and the pancreatic enzymes which are going to kick in should be all working, assuming that they are.
Thank you very much. Sorry to hog the questions.
No, that's okay.
So,
I've got some more, but later on.
Yeah, Vicky.
So linking with the electrolytes, if somebody has high blood pressure and kidneys aren't working correctly, do you wait to start the minerals because they're clogging up until we get digestion going?
Yeah, good question. So my first thought would be, if I suspect I've had an assumption about the kidneys, the first thing I'm going to do is check the breath rate. Now, okay, I'll check the breath rate, because the kidneys are a first line of defense as far as the kidneys are going to adjust pH second by second. That's the primary means of adjusting pH. Now, if the kidneys start to fail, then you look at breath rate and you say, well, is breath rate altered? Are we away from this 16 to 18 breaths per minute? And if we are, well, we know that the kidney's struggling. So if we've got so I will look at that. So it's an assumption. I'll test that assumption, and I'll see if the breath rate's altered. And if it's altered, well, then it's a sign that the kidneys may be a little bit congested. And then you can, depending on how congested that is, for instance, if that person's blood pressure is quite high, you can validate that. You can say, right, what I want you to do for maybe 3 days is drink distilled water.
Okay.
And if they do that and the blood pressure drops, it sort of validates the fact that the kidneys are struggling, and maybe we need to give it a little bit of support. So yeah, it's always go to that breath rate, because that breath rate will alter, because the body will slow down breathing or speed up according to having to manage the acid alkaline balance. If it's within 16 to 18, or say 50, more commonly, most people are going to be around about 12, 13. Most people are lower. Most people are going to have an alkalinity issue more than anything else in the blood. But if it's in between, say 15, 16, 17, 18, well, then you're pretty sure that the kidneys are okay.
Okay.
So what if it's like 13? Is that like
you're on the border? You're on the border. So it's like, when I look, this is a good thing about when you do, because I don't like just doing a test and just say, oh well, it says that, therefore you do this. I will talk to the client, and if I see any other symptoms that may, because some people might sit on 13, that might be normal. Do they have low energy? Do they have acidic tissues, because maybe they've got low oxygen, and therefore that you can probably you'd be quite sure that the breath rate is lower than what it should be. But if you don't see any other signs, 13 is a little bit low, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it, especially if the blood pressure is okay. If the blood pressure is high, and I normally don't get high blood pressure issues. It's more often not as low blood pressure issues I get, because 99% of the clients I work with are going to be female, and they tend to be more low blood pressure. But when I get a high, it doesn't hurt anyway to validate that and just say, well, let's just see, did your blood pressure drop because you did nothing, to take all supplements out and do nothing but drink distilled water, and just see. And you will find a lot of people that are just not hydrating properly. Simple. Like it's every time I get to, when I read through the recommendations, as soon as I get to the water, I'm watching the client, I'm watching them, I know what they're going to say. Oh, Mark, yeah, oh, I know I should be drinking more. And I say, well, come on, you're paying me to tell you this stuff. Like, you know what you should be doing, and you're not drinking enough water. And if you're not drinking enough water, well, then you're going to start running into those issues. And a lot of the time, it's just going to be sufficient water. And I say, look, go away, start drinking some water. Oh, but I pee too much. Well, it's okay. You will pee a bit to start with, but drink some water. It can change your life. I would say probably 70% of the people I work with aren't drinking enough water. That's the root. There's so many problems.
So the conductivity can still be high. The MS reading, even though blood pressure is okay, because you correlate the two.
Yeah, that's right. So if we look at the MS reading, you'd have to give me a scenario. So
say it was 23, but the blood pressure was a little low.
Okay, then we've probably got a congested system. It's more congested than the fact you've got too many electrolytes in the system.
Right.
So
it will be low. Right.
Yeah.
Low. Okay.
Yeah.
Low in. But high, congestion. You're right, because the kidneys wouldn't be looking.
It might be a bit congested. The blood might be a bit congested. If you've got saliva that's high.
I was thinking urine when I.
Okay, urine. Okay, yeah, that would be congested. That could be blood, but if it's the saliva, well, that points towards the lymphatics being congested.
Okay.
You're talking about high pH in saliva?
Sorry?
The conductivity meter.
Yeah, 23. 23. The first thing I would see at a 23 is just drink more water. And you know.
Talking about the breath rate? Or what are you talking about, 23?
The conductivity.
The meter is the reading on it. There's a normal reading, and if it's 23, I picked out because it was high. Yeah,
that's very high. You know, that is a sign that the liver could be, the kidneys could be struggling for sure. Okay, because we know that around about 12 millisiemens is where we need to be. At 12, we know that the kidney's managing everything. It's only working half what it's working at about half of what it needs to do. That's where it should be, at 12. Once it starts going higher, you know there's some issue there. And usually, like I said, my first turn to is ask the question about hydration. And you can almost guarantee they're not hydrating sufficiently.
You said distilled water.
Yeah.
Do you mean like for high, because distilled water doesn't have minerals? Is
No.
there a reason why distilled water?
No, you don't want minerals because you're trying to flush the system out.
Oh, so basically the reason for doing that for a few days is to try to flush the system out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, if I suspect that, I would say let's drink some water, monitor your blood pressure, and see if it drops down. If it drops down, well then you've got a congested system, and it might be just a matter of flushing out for a few days, no subs, and no minerals in the water. So they need to keep an eye on stuff. Of course, if their blood pressure is already a little bit low, we've got to keep an eye on that. But what we're looking for is a drop, and it should.
Yeah, because a lot of the ladies that I talk to all complain about low blood pressure instead of high blood pressure.
Yeah, that's what I see more than anything. The low blood pressure. You know, when I see an electrolyte deficiency imbalance, the first thing I'm going to look at is digestion. I look at the pHs. Are the pHs out? And if they're out, depending on how far they're out. So remember the total body pH, okay, which is 2 times saliva plus 1 times urine divided by 3. And the closer the further away you get from 6.4, the less minerals you're going to be picking up. And that's often the answer. Well, it's part of the answer. It's because you're not digesting. When I say you're not digesting properly, either you can say, okay, you can look at stomach acid, and you say, well, do we have the stomach acid in the first place? Do we have the acidity? Well, then you'd look at saliva. And is saliva below 6.4 or 6.5? If it's like 6, you can almost guarantee that you're either going to be low in stomach acid, and you're not getting the acidity of the stomach acid meeting the alkalinity of the bile. Maybe the bile is low. Maybe there's too much bile. That's rare. So I would look at the pH. First thing I do is look at digestion. Are they burping? Are they bloating? Do they have any acid reflux or anything like that? And if so, then you know, it's a no-brainer. It's probably low stomach acid. The majority of people that I work with are going to have low stomach acid.
Yeah, that's probably me because I bloat a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and
then also my like, okay, my urine pH, like in the morning when it was higher before, but when I was having UTI symptoms or cloudy urine, but when I started doing the Celtic salt and I also started doing iodine, I noticed my urine cleared up and my urine pH actually started dropping because it was above 7 and 8 consistently for a while.
yeah.
But in the mornings it's like 6.5. But then I noticed like after I eat, I try to measure it 2 hours after and it's around 7. So should I be waiting longer to measure after a meal?
What I would do.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what I would do is I would do some little experiments and just try it, just do some more testing and see when it comes to that, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. 2 hours should be enough. All right, so 2 hours, we've digested, our stomach's released its acidic chime into the small intestines. We're done. The initial stages of digestion is done. What we want to do is see, well, what is the outcome of that? What's the result? What are the pHs? And you've actually got everything down into the large intestines. But I would just do some sampling and just monitor and just observe and just see how it changes around. It's always going to be probably a little bit more acidic in the morning. Okay, it's always going to be a little bit more acidic in the morning because it's all of yesterday's waste that's accumulated. And that's why I say don't take the morning first passing of the day. It's no point. It's too hard to, because what you're trying to do is look at the system after it's gone through the whole process of digestion. What's the outcome? And if we stick to that and we be consistent with that, well, then we can start to correlate that with other things. And we actually, if we measure at different times, we're going to get different readings.
So do we still want it like below 7, like 6 to 6.5 after 2 hours after?
Urine should be down to 6, 5.5 to 6. Just
5.5 to 6.
Yeah.
And is it possible that some people just digest their foods a little bit slower, and that's why maybe for some it could be 2 hours, for some it could be a little bit longer?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, I say a minimum of 2 hours after, but see, you know, then I get clients who say, well, I eat more smaller meals, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. But if you can leave it, you know, if you can leave it a little bit longer, that's going to be better as long as you're consistent with that. So if they left it 3 hours, well, every time you do it, make sure it's 3 hours.
Okay. And then what about the saliva? Is that when is the best time to measure that?
I would do it at the same time if you do urine, but make sure with the saliva that the saliva is you don't drink anything for half an hour. And also
that includes water or anything, right?
Yeah, anything. Half an hour, and don't do it too close to a meal, because otherwise it's gonna pick up the alkalinity of the enzymes. So if you're hungry and you start to think about food, and immediately you're going to start producing enzymes in the mouth, and they're alkaline, and so the pH of the saliva will go up. The other thing too, which I've mentioned before, and maybe I'll just remind you on this, with the saliva, when you take the reading, you need to read it immediately. All right, because what will happen, and you can try this. You do a saliva pH, take it and put it on the table and leave it for a few minutes, and you'll see it get more and more alkaline. Okay, that's because it's off-gassing CO2, because a lot of CO2 makes its way into the lymph system. And what's in saliva? Lymph. There's a lot of lymph fluid in saliva. So when you're measuring saliva, you're measuring tissues. You're measuring what's going on around the cells, measuring the lymph. You're getting an idea. Whereas Urine, of course, you're getting an idea along with breath rate on the blood, being filtered blood.
I had someone and they did really well. They had pain at a 9, it went down to like a 1, and now she's literally on Nepronol, you know, every other month, if a little longer. She still takes MSM every day.
Yeah.
But when she stops, she still is on the beat flow and the HCl, blood type A.
Yeah.
But when she stops the beat flow, her stool gets lighter. Now, wouldn't you think it would be healed by now? Or, you know, it's been well over 6 months.
Yeah. What's her, how's her saliva pH?
It's great. Everything is perfect and book-wise, everything. Digestion was like 6.6 this past time.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
But why would it go back to lighter color?
Well, it doesn't make sense that would happen. And
not light, but lighter than the dark brown. It's like, so
yeah.
obviously the beet leaf is doing that.
Well, the beet leaf should be thinning the bile so that you get more bile, which means it should be darker. And unless
not the beet leaf itself.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Does that mean they need more support for like a coffee enema or something?
Well, well, the first thing I do is look at so the saliva pH is above 6.4, yeah.
It's like she's like a 5.5 and a 5.2 and a 6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 is too low, so bile's not moving.
Oh, I'm sorry, 6.5.
Okay, 6.5. So
5.5 to 6 is urine, and then she gets to 6.5.
Yeah. Okay, so 6.5, you're just on that, just over the limit that I would say that maybe it needs pushing a little bit more. Maybe we need some, you know, some things like some bitters or some dandelion.
Okay, so just a little more support into that.
Yeah, choline, anything choline can really push the gallbladder as well.
But her breath rate's fine. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah. Okay. So, and how's she feeling out of 10?
Great. She's like a 9. Sometimes she'll get some shoulder pain, which is, you know, so gallbladder, liver up here.
Okay. So when it gets to that, I'm saying, cool. Doesn't matter. It's okay. I think.
I mean, she still has to keep taking it forever, obviously.
Well, she shouldn't have to.
Well, see, that's the.
Yeah, shouldn't have to do that.
I gave her some Core Dandy as well, and that seems to be kind of doing that extra support.
Yeah. So you know, one thing you can test, one thing you can do with the beet flow is do a beet flow flush. If you're not really sure, okay, so I'm going to do a beet flow flush. 4 caps, wait half an hour. 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 Do a measure of a saliva pH before and measure a pH after. Did it shoot up? Yes. Okay, we know we've got a blockage. Yeah. Did it move at all? No. All right. Well, then do we need to look further, or are we happy where we're at? We shouldn't have to keep taking it. Like, I work with quite a lot of people over a 12-month period. And so I get a really good look over time. And more often than not, we nail it. But it takes time. But as we move forward, we start dropping off the subs. It's like I did when I was really sick when I first got into this. I didn't take any subs at all. I take some MSM, I take magnesium. That's about it, and some powders. And I'm an A.
And so yeah, so are you. So I thought, well, maybe they always got to be on.
Yeah, no, it's what I see with a lot of this work. When you focus on getting these numbers right, it's a bit like pushing a car that's broken down, or it's spluttering, it's out of tune or whatever, and you push that and so it takes off. And then when it stops, you might be okay. It doesn't need any more help anymore. I find that a lot with this work over time. Once you get some stability, you got to. I have to do some case studies on these coaching programs. You can see over time. I'm gonna have to do that because you can see it's just almost like magic, and you go like, is it this simple? Yeah, but you got to get that stability. Once you've got that stability and that consistency. Right, and this is what when I work with a client to start with over a period of time, the first aim is the first aim. I'll just mention out the first aim I do. The first thing I do is try and do we have any really compromising issues? Do we have insomnia? We've got to focus on it. Has this person got migraines? Have they got lots of body pain? Okay, we've got to fix that now. And we've got to get some relief. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting with epigenetics and mindset, and they're going to be feeling like crap. And then once we've got that, we start to say, let's start working on the pHs and sugars. And the sugars and the pHs are going to drive everything. Can we get some stability? And when you start to see some stability, especially in the sugars, because sugars like this are going to cause a body like this. It's going to cause energy like this. It's going to cause emotions like this, anxiety like this. It's going to be a mess because your sugars are like this, and you'll see the pHs are like that too. So you work on the sugars, which is going to help work on the pHs. You get that stability, and you say, right, now we can start doing some cooler stuff. Now we can start bringing in some superfoods, and we can start doing, because you're going to get more out of it now. Now we've settled down the body, and we've got that consistency. Because it's once you've got that consistency, it's hard to knock it out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I see anyway. It's hard to knock it out. It can be hard to get some balance, and that's the hard work to start with. Is just steady. We're not going to get any great wins. We're just going to go steady. And I've got some great. I'm going to do I have to do some case studies on this. And what you'll see, especially when people are trying to lose weight, this is a good example. As the body starts to, if we start to get this balance, and we start to get the balance in the pHs, what happens to the weight? Starts coming down. It's beautiful. The body's just getting balance, and it's starting to normalize.
Okay, so only if it goes up after the flush, there's congestion. If not, then it's good.
I would say, unless you, especially if the person's 9 out of 10, that's, like you're done. Yeah. And maybe you can pull away from something like Beat Flow, because Beat Flow is quite expensive. And, some people are going to be like, oh, I've got to get that every time. Well, no, maybe get some dandelion root or some Swedish bitters or something like that can also help. Remember, the dandelion and the bitters are going to stimulate bile more. What's the other thing? It doesn't matter. But yeah, I think, the bottom line is, and once again, this is what I find when I work with people over time, because I get to see this, is, okay, well, your pHs is there. You're feeling really, really good. Everything else is pretty good. I'm not going to say, no, you've got to get them up into this, but that's where you're at. And if your sugars are up here and everything's cool, that's where you're at. It doesn't matter. The ultimate gauge is, how do you feel? You're feeling good. You got the energy. Everything's cool. You've got clarity in the mind. You've got clarity in the body. You're done.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Nikki.
Yes, talking about the MSM, I was given once some sulfonamide drugs, antibiotics, 25 years ago, whatever. And I had a terrible reaction. I came up in lumps and my lips went blue, and I was told to sort of drink a lot of water and eat bread and not take any more.
Right.
But it's made me very worried about the MSM. Is that this? Could there be any correlation with the sulfur in the MSM and sulfonamide drugs, or is it? I mean, I've done some research and it says it's different, but I don't know if I trust it.
Yeah, because there's different types of sulfur. I'm not. There are a lot of people that come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm allergic to sulfur," and they do MSM. There's no problem. It's a different form of sulfur. I rarely see any problems with the MSM. Very rarely see any issues. I mean, MSM is water soluble, so you can take as much as you want. You're just going to pee it out anyway, so you're not going to accumulate too much of it. But I'm not really sure. It'd be interesting to find out if that was the case, but I'm not totally sure. But I don't think so. I'd be inclined to think that it's not the MSM.
Right. I'm just a bit frightened to try it, and then that happens for any reason.
Well,
and
then maybe try it, and try it at a very small dose, and just go weeny bits, and just see.
Yeah.
And you know, whenever I can, as you know, what I try and do is if I have an assumption, and that's an assumption, I try and test it. So let's see, and let's do my own experiment. And this is how I learned so much to start with, because I had a microscope on the desk. I had all the testing equipment, and I'll do so many things. And I go, I'll test it. I'll test it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to check my blood. I'm going to check my live blood. Did it make any difference? I'm going to check everything. And it's amazing how much you can learn just through that process. You know, it's like high sugars. How much of high sugars creating the problem of how I feel, my energy levels, or my mind, or some anxiety? I don't know. Let's knock them down. Let's take some comfrey root tea. So it's an assumption. I want to test it. Make a comfrey root tea, drink that. Did the sugars drop? Measure it before and after. Yes, they dropped. How did you feel? Oh, I felt much better. But now we've identified that those sugars are having a big impact on your well-being. Now we've got some direction. Did they not drop, or did they drop and you didn't feel any difference? Well, we can safely say that those sugars aren't having much impact on your well-being or your mind, because, as you know, sugars are everything. Sugars are everything.
Is that the fasting sugar thing?
Yeah. In fact, sugar issues is one of the biggest problems I see. And why? Well, there's a number of reasons, and I'll just quickly cover it. Why not? I'll cover it in other things, but I'll cover it now. You think about sugar. Sugar's electrically dead. Okay, the sugar itself is not acid, it's not alkaline. It doesn't even register on a pH meter. There's no energy flow. You can't put energy. So you can imagine, when you have high sugar foods, you think about the white blood cells, the red blood cells. The red blood cells, on the outer edge of the red blood cell, there's a lot of negative charge, electrons around the edge. Now, electrons, negative charge repels. So this is why blood cells require this. This is theta potential. This is the theta potential. It's the degree of repulsion. Okay, discretion. And so when you start to have sugars, the sugar actually starts to coat the red blood cells. You get a coating on the red blood cells, and then you go into this steric hindrance, which is where you get this interruption of this negative charge. And what happens, this has got more sugar than this one, for instance, and now the charges have altered. Now this blood cells start to stick together. Okay, so the blood cells start to stick together, and then you have less flow. If you have less flow, you have less delivery of nutrients, including oxygen, which is the most important thing. The other thing that happens with sugars, as sugars increase in the bloodstream, the red blood cells can pick more oxygen up, right? But they can't release it. That's the bell curve effect.
Yeah.
And so you have less release of oxygen. On top of that, what happens with when you've got sugars in the bloodstream? It starts to attract calcium from the tissues, because calcium will follow. It's attracted to the sugar. Now we're increasing the alkalinity of the blood even more, and we're even having less oxygen delivered to the cells. And if we have less oxygen delivered to the cells, the first thing that's going to happen is energy can drop by 18 times.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we go into anaerobic fermentation, because we don't have oxygen available, or not much oxygen. So the body says, well, I've got to produce energy. I'm just going to start fermenting sugars. So energy drops by 18 times. And then what's going to happen? Now we're going to produce a lot of lactate, a lot of lactic acid, the byproduct of energy production. Now we've got acidic tissues. Now we have body pain. Now we have no energy. And all because of sugar. Alcohol will do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you eat some sugar, or, you know, I mean, because occasionally one fancies a bit of chocolate or something.
Yeah.
Should you measure your blood after to see how high it spikes? How high should it spike after you've eaten them?
I would definitely, this is what I used to do. Okay, because someone asked me that question. I'll be doing a consult when I used to have my clinic. And they'll be saying, well, I can remember one just off the top of my head. It was kiwi fruit. And I suspected he had sugar problems. He said, I'm only eating kiwi fruit. I said, well, eat kiwi fruit and let's measure your sugars. And whoosh. So test. You have to try and gauge what your normal body's response is based on how you feel, right? Because high sugars high sugars, you know, but if I get someone like they're feeling, they say, oh, I just feel a little bit off center. I feel, you know, the back of my head, I just feel a little bit weird. I feel a little bit anxious. I feel just, I don't know, I'm just not right. And I've got no energy. The first thing I'm going to do is go, what's your pHs of your urine? Oh, it's way up. Sugars. Too alkaline. Okay. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, but yeah, definitely someone can eat a banana and the sugars go through the roof.
Yeah.
Someone can eat a Mars, yeah. Someone can eat a Mars bar or some chocolate. See, sugar itself is very dense, pure sugar. So it depends on what they're eating. If you're eating pure sugar as opposed to a piece of white bread, and you had sugar problems, you're better off having pure sugar because it's going to release slower. Okay, so the glycemic load of what you're eating when you're talking about sugars is really important because it's this spiking. Yeah, this spiking that causes the problem.
And should you test immediately after you've eaten it? Or
no, I'd wait 20 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Yeah.
In regards to what she's saying, if you have insulin resistance and you know your breath rate's lower, but every time you test, and I know I've asked you this in the past, your urine is still low. Now, with that, doesn't mean you're catabolic necessarily. You just might be insulin resistance, but you don't have enough potassium, which means not enough protein because that's the biggest buffer of acids.
Yeah.
So what else can you?
Well, the first thing I would do if I suspect, okay, so we've got another assumption here of maybe we're a bit catabolic, maybe that we could be, okay.
But the breath rate's low.
Okay, but we can still test this because the breath rate could be low because of something else. So we could say with the catabolic, which is typically going to have more acidic, it's going to have more alkaline tissue. So the best thing you can do, the best thing to test anabolic or catabolic. Okay, if you're a little bit unsure, because it doesn't matter what the results say, because it could be tricking you. Okay, especially if you're a bit confused, you go like, oh, what's going on? If you suspect it's maybe catabolic, well then drink some bicarb.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
And monitor the pain levels. The pain levels should go up a little bit.
Okay.
Because it's going to be alkaline pain. And if you suspect anabolic, sorry. Hang on. What am I saying here? Yeah, it doesn't matter either way. So if you take the bicarb and you're anabolic, well, you're going to feel a bit better. And if you're catabolic, you're going to feel a bit worse.
Yep. Okay.
And more often than not, it's going to be.
You're also going by symptoms and everything too. I get that, but it was.
Sure. It's always good to validate those things because, you know, insulin resistance. Okay. Well, what's going on with the liver? Because the liver and pancreas are very closely related. Do we think we've got an issue with? Are we doing some work on the liver? And maybe I suspect the liver. Well, what's going on with the gallbladder? Because it's connected. How's our pH of our saliva? Do we see any links? But yeah, you can. It always gets a little bit confusing when you do have like, oh, my pHs are out, and that doesn't sort of correlate. And sometimes it won't correlate. That's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Janice. Okay, more questions. This is great. We're getting some good stuff out.
So I have a question. Why do you think, because I have like insomnia issues, like I have no problems going to sleep, but then I'll wake up like early in the morning and I have a problem going back to sleep. Because I know we were talking about the pH levels and all that, looking at insomnia and then looking at the pH levels.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you asked me about, I think, before. I helped someone the other day who was in an absolute mess, and we struggled a bit to try and work out what was going on. And I said, right, when you wake up in the morning, I want you to measure your pH of your saliva, measure your pH of your urine. I want to do a sugar reading. All right. And what we found is it was very acidic, and I said, well, okay, next time you wake up in the morning, and this person hasn't slept for about a month properly. I said, when you wake up in the morning next time, what I want you to do before you go to bed tomorrow is take half a spoon of bicarb and see if that makes any difference. And it did. Bang, got it. Because we picked up the acidity. Okay, we might have picked up high alkalinity, and then I would have said, we'll take maybe some P5P or something like that to be able to acidify, or some ascorbic acid to acidify things before you went, because you just don't know how that's going to affect. You can take out the equation anyway, so it's worth doing that. You know, one of the powerful aspects of doing this testing is whenever you are facing a problem, like right now, if suddenly I got a headache or I suddenly started feeling really, really crap, or I woke up in the morning and I'm really first thing I'm going to do, what's my pHs? What's my sugar reading? Because you're going to find something. It's going to tell you something. And you don't need to understand the intricate details, because no one's ever going to know necessarily. All you know is, like, I've got this really big headache, and every time I have this headache, my pH of my urine is really high. Well, then acidify. Drink some carbonated water. And did your headache get some relief? Yes. Okay. Well, we know there's a link between the alkalinity and your headache. Now we're getting a little. We've still got to fix the problem, but we've validated that, and you've got a really good opportunity. Not only if you have a really exceptionally bad day, and when you do these readings, when you do the readings, when you got a really bad day or a really good day, it doesn't matter if you're just eating, it doesn't matter what time of day, you do it there and then. I want to know what my chemistry is right now that makes me feel like this. Okay. Same thing happened. The same thing applies to when you feel really good. Is I'm going to want to know what my chemistry is. It's going to be different. Your pH is going to be different. Your sugar reading is going to be different. Your breath rate is going to be different. Something's going to be different. You'll pick it up. All right. This is the power, because people feel crap and they feel good, but they don't know why they felt good, so they can't replicate it.
Okay, so like morning sugar, like I know, like me, and especially it wasn't like this before, but it was recently, even after eating much healthier. And I noticed a lot of some of the women that I talked to, their fasting glucose has actually increased. Yep. Even eating like veggies and much healthier and drinking plenty of water, mine included. Like my fasting glucose used to be like in the high 80s, low 90s, sometimes mid 80s. Now it's consistently like in the high 90s, and sometimes even above 100. So why is that? Is that because of a sugar issue, a cortisol issue?
Okay, well,
I guess because sugar and cortisol is related, right?
Yeah, well because your cortisol raises in the morning anyway when you wake up. That's what wakes you up, essentially. And sugar also increases in the morning. So if you wake, this is another thing you can do. You can wake up in the morning and go, okay, I'm going to do a fasting sugar test, all right, fasting glucose, and then do nothing, eat nothing, drink nothing, wait an hour, and do it again. And I bet you would have gone up, because your sugars will go up.
Well, actually, mine goes down.
Well, in general, they would rise a little bit, because when you wake up, your body's getting ready to do stuff. It needs some more energy. It'll pick up sugars. Yeah. So,
I know, like 30 minutes. I know, like 30 minutes after waking up, the cortisol goes up in general for most people, and then it starts to taper down a little bit after that 30 minutes. Because I guess you're already woken up. So when you measure the glucose level, then it's probably going to be lower, because usually that's what happens to me.
Yeah.
When I first wake up, I measure my blood glucose and I notice it's high, but then like at 11 o'clock, like past an hour, way past an hour, several hours actually after being up and not eating anything, I notice my blood sugar is lower, like in the high 80s or low 90s.
Yeah, it may be different for yeah, it's going to be, this is why we need to try and measure more and try and understand that typically they will go up a little bit more in the day, in the morning. The other thing the reasons why they might shoot up in the morning is because of stress. So someone wakes up I see this a lot, okay? Majority of people I work with have some anxiety or depression. Okay, because it's all linked. They're not getting the oxygen. They're not, if you're not getting oxygen, well, you're going to feel like crap. You're going to be depressed and you're going to get anxiety. Okay, because they have low oxygen. Why do you have low oxygen? Well, we talked about that with sugars and stuff like that. Everything. It's just like cell membranes, not permeable. You name it. Stress, because someone wakes up in the morning. So the first question I asked is, what are you thinking? What's going through your? Describe to me you waking up in the morning. Tell me what's going on. And more often than not, you'll find they wake up and they start worrying. It's the new day. And as they start worrying, sugar goes up, digestion goes down, immune system shuts down. And as the sugar goes up, we know if it goes up too much. And everyone's stressed. You can't eat, you can't think when it's stressed, because your mind, your brain power drops about 30% too. This is why it's such a disaster around the planet right now, where everyone's in fear. But they also can't think straight because fear drops your intelligence by 30%, because
including the politicians.
Sorry?
So if it's consistently like around 90s in the mornings, you think is that something to be concerned about, or do you think it's more like maybe you need to focus on stress?
I wouldn't be too worried. That wouldn't be a concern with me. I get more concerned when it hits 100 and consistently. Look, ideally we're around about 80. That's nice. We struggle. Most people are going to struggle to get close to that. So the baseline I use is 100. Before I would intervene, take some chromium percolinate, or something like that, to see if, once again, I want to know if that 90 is causing me a problem.
Yeah.
And if I suspect it is, I would do a comfy test and drop them like a rock and see if it made any difference.
Okay.
And if it did,
because most of the times I see, like, the mornings are high, but then a lot of people would say, like me included, and some of the women I talk to, later on in the day, they see that their glucose level are actually lower after eating, or hours after eating, versus early in the morning on a fasting glucose. Well,
because you're burning energy too. Of course, you're waking up, you're doing stuff, you're being more active, and that burns energy, that burns sugar. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, but you're burning more. You're burning more. There's so many variables, of course there is, and like I said, even people jumping in a car and driving to work and getting frustrated with the traffic is going to put your sugars up. So that can really influence things, and it can really, unless you can account for that. You say, okay, that's going on. All right, well, I can allow for that. I can take that in consideration. Do we still have a problem? Are we still seeing something? But in the 90s, I wouldn't worry about it. It's only when it gets above 100 why start to see oxygen problems, the steric hindrance, right? And the steric hindrance, which then connects with low oxygen, which then connects to cells going anaerobic, which means they become even less permeable as well. So it's a compounded effect. Over 100, I take action. Under 100, I don't worry about it, because it could be anything. It could be anything, and unless I'm seeing that being a problem, unless there's something that I need to pinpoint, which I don't normally do, because I like to do everything at the same time, and just say to the client, just chill. We've got to work on everything, like this. It'll all come into balance. But if there's something that's causing that person some stress or some worry, then I would target it and say, okay, well, we're not going to fix it. But what we can do is we can do some stuff to try and manage that a little bit better, so that we can get your body into some sort of balance, and we can get your mind into some sort of balance, and therefore the epigenetics kicks in, and now you're going to get 35% for free. You know, I'm always after the epigenetics, the placebo effect, always, because you're getting 35% for nothing.
So if someone has insomnia issue, what would be the first thing you would probably look at?
Well, I would ask that person. Just let someone in. I would ask that person to describe to me what that insomnia was. So if for instance, a lot of the time they're going to say, "Oh, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can't get back to sleep." Well, cortisol. The 3 o'clock in the morning. I would. Are they when they? A lot of people who can't sleep. I'd ask the question: is your mind racing? You know, you're lying in bed and your mind's going like, dung, dung, I can't sleep. Oh, try not to sleep. I'm going to get to sleep. I'm not going to, you know, you get a lot of people, their mind starts to race. So you've got all these neurotransmitters going, dung, 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 dung. Well, then I'd say GABA. That will slow down the mind, will slow down the racing mind. And we try that. That's if they can't get to sleep because they're this or their mind's racing. Or they wake up in the night and their mind's racing. It's probably going to be the mind racing. So it's a GABA. What's a GABA? It's an amino acid. Oh, it's amino acid. What's going on with digestion? What's going on with stomach acid? Are we getting these aminos? Oh, no, we're not. So the chances are we're going to be lacking in GABA. So there may be a connection there. I would look at that. Another thing I would look at with waking up in the night is do we have an electrolyte deficiency issue? And we'll have a look. What are the blood pressures? What do we have the difference of 12 between resting and starting?
Later, but somebody pooped, and yeah, they delivered the thing.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I don't know who that was. Yeah, so with electrolyte deficiency.
I'm sorry, I thought I was muted.
Oh no, that's okay. So with electrolyte deficiency, I'm going to say, okay, maybe you're waking up because your body's looking for minerals, or it could be looking for sugar. So let's validate that. How do we validate that? Well, you have a spoon, you put it by the side of your bed, and you have half a spoon of honey and you have half a spoon of salt. If you wake up in the night, just put the salt underneath your tongue, let that soak in, take the sugar. Did you fall asleep? Better. Yes. Oh, well, we've just validated that the chances are this is because of the electrolyte deficiency issue. And that once again gives us that focus, that direction to work on the insomnia. We could have insomnia because we have a catabolic imbalance. Our cell membranes are too permeable. So we need to look at that. We look at the cell membranes. Cell membranes, lipids, gallbladder, pH of your urine. So saliva, is it above 6.5? Do we have a catabolic imbalance? Are we eating saturated fats? That's another common one. And so you can say we'll maybe some coconut oil before, but coconut oil is not that high in saturated fats. So it's more medium chain. But you know, there's good reason why in the old days, little Johnny was put to bed with a glass of milk. What's milk? Saturated fat. What does the saturated fat do? Close membranes down. What happens when you close membranes down? Energy drops because you go into an anaerobic rest and digest. And then you fall asleep.
So it's also a possibility that you're not getting enough of the right fats to help shut that down.
Yeah, absolutely. So look at the catabolic. If you're seeing a glaring catabolic, okay. So let's think about this just quickly without doing any other testing. Have a look at the pHs, and if the pHs are 1 point apart, so we got 6.7 and 5.7, that's quite catabolic. Saliva 6.7, urine 5.7, that's quite a spread. And anything more, this is more spread, more catabolic. Less spread, more anabolic. So a 6.5 and a 6.5, there's nothing going on in the body. Why not? Because the membranes are shut down. There's no metabolism. There's no waste. Okay? Because of the waste, you'd see it in the urine. It'd be more acid. Okay? And you'd have that spread. We want a bit of spread. But once we start going above 1, you go like, it's a no-brainer. Well, when I say it's a no-brainer, it's direction. The next question would be, are these pH readings consistent? And if it's a big enough problem, and it's you think it's causing too much, I would say when I come across a client like that, I say, I'm not really sure. So for the next 3 days, I want you to do these readings again. Let's see if they're consistently spread. And not just react off of one reading. Okay. More often than not, we tend to get lower. We tend to be, there's a mix, but usually it's more, the pHs tend to be lower. And they tend to be lower because we have liver gallbladder issues more than anything. We're eating the fats, but we're not emulsifying them and breaking them down. We may not be eating the fats, right? And as soon as I come across a vegetarian or a vegan, I can tell it straight away. We get to the question, I go, "You eating fats?" Because what's going on? Oh no, I'm not eating fats. There you go. You're not getting saturated fats. You're not getting good oils in your body. You've got to. And you don't have to go and eat animal fat, but you've got to get saturated fats because we've got 70 trillion cells in our body that require them. Otherwise, they're not going to shut down. And then you're going to.
So you think it's good to get saturated fats from coconut then? I've always been confused about that.
Yeah, it's not bad, but there's a lot of medium chain fatty acids in coconut. So it's quite. This is why with coconut oil is probably not a bad choice because you don't need a gallbladder to get them. Okay, so when someone's struggling with gallbladder, you can switch to coconut oil, but take it at nighttime. Okay, that's assuming, so you've got to ask the question, are we bringing in those fats? There's a good reason why, and this is not typical, I know, but I've worked with so many people that are vegetarians, that are vegan, that don't go anywhere near animal feeds or anywhere near dairy, and that's okay, but they're drawn, they're weak. You can see because they're not getting the fats. Yeah, and they've got no energy because they're not getting the fats.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their body's just breaking down because they're catabolic, letting go, can't hold on to, and that including sleep. So yeah,
because I do work with a lot of women, or I do talk to a lot of women who are mostly vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah,
due to diseases. That's why they choose that.
So coconut oil is a good turn to for sure. Absolutely, because there are some saturated fats in there, and it's easy to get. It's just not easy to eat. But okay, well, try it. And at nighttime, maybe just start off with one teaspoon a day, then maybe work up to two tablespoons at nighttime. I don't have any problem.
But what about MCT oil? Is that or not? Is that an option too, or no?
Yeah. Try it.
Okay.
Because once again, we don't really realize this, but if the body's not getting what it wants, it's not going to let you sleep, or it doesn't want you to, or it'll very easily wake you up, and you don't know why. So, one other thing, very few people think about this, is fats are transported into the bloodstream via a lymphatic system. Okay, so it's a different lymphatic system, but it's a lymphatic system as well. So movement, is this person moving? Are they getting some exercise? Are they actually getting some flow? could be, it's probably not that important actually. You know, it's more rare that to be an issue, but it could be. This is where sometimes it's good to look at the bloods if you got a chance to access the dry bloods, because you can see, you go, okay, your lymphatics are congested. It's a no-brainer. Okay. But yeah, if they electrolyte deficiency, that's going to be one of the first ones. Mind racing, electrolyte deficiency, salt, and some honey. But are they eating fats? Are they bringing in sufficient fats? And if they are, when there's a gallbladder working? Do we have low saliva pH? Well, then probably we need to push the gallbladder. And if the gallbladder is not working, what's going to happen? It's going to back up into the liver. And if it backs up into the liver and it's been going on for a while, what's going to happen is the liver is going to back up into the blood. And then the next question is, are they putting on weight? Because their system's overloaded. And then the body says, well, I've got to deal with these. So what happens is any toxins in the blood, and that includes undigested molecules. What's going to happen is the body's going to go like, I can't get rid of it. I'm struggling. So I'm going to wrap it up into a fat cell, and I'm going to stash it away in the tissues, and I won't let it go. This is where a lot of people putting on weight, and they go, like, I'm not eating anymore. It doesn't matter. You'll still put on weight, and you won't lose it. It'll be very hard to lose, even if you stop eating. It'll take a while before the body says, okay, all clear, coast is clear. Now I can release that toxin, because I know the liver can deal with it, because the gallbladder's flowing. We've got the pathways open. It will release it, and then it will burn the fat. And this is why a lot of people can lose weight without doing anything. They can lose weight sat in their bed all day, just by working on their liver and getting their system clear, so that the body can go, I'm going to go and get that toxin now, and I'm going to release it, because now I can deal with it. And it all began because more often than not, the gallbladder, bile flow is compromised, backing up liver, backing up bloodstream, and the body going like, I'm either going to die, or I'm going to have to do something with these toxins. Vicky.
At the bit. When would you take potassium as a supplement? What would be your?
I wouldn't. I don't often recommend it. Doesn't mean it. For potassium, I got loads of steamed veggies.
What if somebody doesn't eat it? For example, my daughter doesn't eat it, and she was in the hospital, and they said she's severely low. Well, she's skinny as it is. She's got issues. However,
yeah,
I support her with that. I mean, she needs it.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
In normal people here, I guess I'm saying we probably wouldn't use it at all then, right? Just get the veggies in, because that's part of everything to get in balance.
Yeah, I mean, lots of steamed veggies, like 8 or 9 cups of steamed veggies a day, big time. I find a lot of people tend to focus too much on raw food, and raw food is okay for sure. I wouldn't. If you're talking about vegetables like beetroot and like pumpkin, like carrots and stuff like that, to have that raw and to think you're going to get much out of it, once again, just some logical thinking here. Let's think about a cow that stands in the middle of the field chewing its cud all day. Now it's eating grass. And a cow has 4 stomachs. Well, it has 4 stages of digestion. It has 3 stomachs, but 4 stages of digestion, a cow. That's to extract the nutrients out of grass, right? Do we think we're going to eat raw food and we're going to get the nutrients? Nah, it's going to be a struggle. So I say, look, with raw food, just keep it down to leafy raw food, of course, the green leaf for sure. But what I try and say to people, because people say, oh, what about my diet? Should I be another? Don't let diet control you. You control diet. What do we got to have on our plate? So what I say is like the 80-60-20 rule. 80% of what's on your plate should be plant-based. 20% of what's in your plate should be protein. Okay, most people eat too much protein, way too much. The body doesn't deal with it, and that ends up with lymphatic congestion, which ultimately can lead to cancer. because they don't have the ability to be able to digest much more than what's in the palm of the hand. And yet we go to the supermarket and you buy I'm just going to mute this. You buy a portion of meat. It's twice as big as what the body can handle, and they know that. But if they just sell you a normal portion of meat, you're not going to buy it. But they're not going to make much money. So 80% plant-based, 20% protein, and 60% of that 80% of plant-based should be steamed. So 20% on the plate should be raw. So for me, I'm a blood type A. I must admit, I've been terrible since I've been in the UK, but in general, I'm pretty good. I'll have a base of salad. Any salad, just buy a bag of the salad. I don't care. It's cool. And then on top of that, I'll put a whole heap of steamed veggies. On top of that, I'll put usually some chicken. And then you can add in your oils on top of that. And then often I'll put good butter on that as well. I'll melt the butter on the steamed veggies. And then maybe some pumpkin seeds or something, whatever you want to do to taste. Oh, eggs are good. Eggs are good. Don't have to digest eggs. The eggs are at the end result of digestion of protein. They're already done for you. And a lot of the time, that's all I'll have. Every time. Nearly every meal, I'll have that. And people look at me sometimes. They go like, "Are you eating that for breakfast?" Forget about breakfast. It's nutrition. Get breakfast out your mind, get dinner out your mind, get lunch out your mind. I've got to feed my body with some nutrition. And yeah, it's like, let's get away from food being entertainment. It's not entertainment. It's nutrition. And if you do that, and you have fresh veggies, fresh steamed veggies, and fresh green leaf stuff, when you look at the plate, what are you seeing? You're seeing life energy. Right? When you eat, so that's another thing I say. Look, when you look at your plate, if you don't see any life energy, which is nothing fresh, nothing's live. I mean, it's not going to be alive, but I mean, fresh veggies and fresh meat is going to be as live as it can be. Well, then you're going to get that energy from what you're eating. If you're looking at a pizza or a hamburger, yeah, you're going to get full up, but there's no energy in there. So how the hell do you think you're going to get it? You're not. And it's just a simple thing, but it's just be mindful that you are transferring the energy from the plate into your body. And the easier you can do that, the better, of course, because what happens when you eat a pizza is you end up with a net energy loss. It's like poor digestion, the same thing. You end up with a net energy loss. So you eat a meal and you actually have less energy afterwards because it's taken more energy to process it than you actually get out of it. That was a long-winded answer.
You say take choline, but if that's going to raise breath rate, what if you're normal and you just want to get some, benefit of the choline? Is there a limit? Or
you can still use it short term. Use it short term.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, breath rate is difficult to breath rates. It may change it temporarily, but it's hard to permanently change breath rate. It takes time. Like I work with some clients that I come in there, they're at 5, and we've got to get them up to 15. It can take 4 months to do that.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't matter if it shoots up in between. If you're pushing the gallbladder, because choline will really push it. You got to be careful because sometimes it can push it too hard and give them pain. But sometimes you just go like, I'm going to give it a really kick in the guts. And if you do that, well, then you've got to be obviously mindful of the sensitivity of the client. Are they able to take that? And some people aren't. So you have to be more gentle. Otherwise, they're going to hate you.
Okay.
Are you saying with the choline, is that more of a concern if they're supplementing, or are you talking about even just from food?
There's a product called Choline Max, I think it is, from Empirical Labs. It's any choline, it'll get as a supplement to really push the gallbladder. If you need to. If you tried the beet flow, you've maybe tried some bitters, you've maybe tried some TUDCA, TUDCA. It's an acid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
TUDCA. 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 That can be quite good for bile and for liver and for everything. I use that a fair bit now. So the choline would be something, the last resort.
Okay.
Unless, I'll just say, some people, and I get some clients, I know straight away, I look at their bloods, I'm looking at their numbers, I'm going like, whoa, your bloods are coming back really crap, but your numbers are coming back pretty good. What does that tell me? That there's nothing going on? Well, I know there is because I'm looking at your bloods, and I know there is because of your symptoms. But what I see through the numbers is robustness. We've got some, your numbers are holding on pretty well. There's all this shit going on, but your numbers are holding on. What does that mean? They've got robustness. What does that mean? You can push them hard. All right, you can push them hard, and gauging how hard you can push them, that's quite important. I do that. It's I love a client that I can push because we can get run from the ball very, very quickly, as opposed to, a lot of people, they are very sensitive, and you've got to take things in baby steps. And with those people, it's more of a factor of, when I come across a sensitive person, I say, well, what we need to do these things, but you can't tell. It's like juggling behind your back. Don't let your body know what you're doing. You do it so sensitive, so subtle, because immediately your body knows what you're doing. Even if your mind, even if you put too much focus on it, just do it. Just don't make a big deal of it. Because as soon as you make a big deal of it, you're going to get a reaction. And they're already like this. Their body's already like all over the place. You got to calm down. So, the unconscious mind is so powerful. And I'm sure some of the people I'm working with, I'm only working with them because they're stressing about what they should be eating. Or how many supplements, or how many milligrams of this, or how many milligrams of that. I think that's the case with a lot of people. And it's not... you've got to gauge all that. You've got to gauge all that. And then that's a good thing about, obviously, that's why I like to talk to my clients, because I like to see them. I like to look at their eyes. I like to be able to try and as best I can gauge their energy levels. And that then dictates how much I can push.
Would you ever give the alpha keto glutarate and GABA together? Because I know the alpha stimulates the GABA in chemistry, but would you give it?
I haven't.
I mean, it would be a band-aid, obviously, until things start working correctly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, anything like that. Once again, if you think you can push a bit, because some people you can push and it doesn't matter what you do, and they're not going to react.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done. I don't use GABA much either, because more often than not, I find it's not a GABA problem, and the GABA, it may be an anxiety problem, and GABA can help with that. But then I would go more ashwagandha.
Okay.
If it wasn't the racing mind, I would say my first turn to with anxiety issues with sleeping, ashwagandha.
Plus that helps with sugar control too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow.
Well, the other thing too, just you mentioned sugar control too, and you probably know this, I'm not sure. is this is why it's important to have protein with each meal, especially with breakfast, because it helps stabilize blood sugars. Okay. If you get people that are having problems with blood sugars and they don't eat breakfast and blah blah blah, no wonder you're putting your body into stress. So eat some protein. This is why I eat protein. This is why, you know, like I said, so many people freak out when they look at my breakfast. Sometimes they go like, God, you're going to eat all that? Well, yeah, of course I am. This is my first meal of the day. And it looks like a meal, it looks like lunch, or it looks like dinner. I don't care. It's breakfast. This is what I eat. Because I'm a blood type A, I have to be very mindful of my sugar.
When you say protein, is it mostly just animal-based protein or plant? Because you know most plant-based.
Yeah.
Because you know most plant-based protein, I mean, they're high in carbs. You know, so
yeah. Well, I mean, things like broccoli. Broccoli is 50% protein.
Really?
Yeah, 53% protein. It's broccoli. But broccoli's good. I'd use broccoli, or I'd use hemp seed protein.
Quinoa?
Sorry?
Quinoa?
Quinoa, yeah. Quinoa.
Oh, quinoa.
Quinoa, yeah. Quinoa.
I use that.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Oh, that's what I would sometimes put on my salads, quinoa. Because you have that nutty flavor, don't you? It's that sort of nutty.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I haven't had any of that for ages.
I know. I live on it.
It's lush. Yes. I'm going to buy some tomorrow. That's that, because I'm just thinking about, oh, I get so boring with my meals. I just duplicate every day. But I don't care. It's like my clothes. I like one, I just wear every day. I just buy 6 of them. I'm a bloke. And with the, yeah, quinoa, yeah. Quinoa, lentils.
Yeah, lentils.
Yeah. Yeah, a great form of protein. You know, if you can eat eggs are going to be great because it's already emulsified protein. It's already done. It's eggs are the end result of digestion.
Yeah, I never knew that eggs was already pretty much digested.
Yeah, that's why they're so good. And
Interesting.
I don't have a problem with people eating 4 eggs a day. No problem at all.
So, like, if you have a digestion issue and like you're not able to digest protein well for whatever reason, I guess eggs would be an option until you kind of get that fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. Things like the quinoa, lentils and stuff like that, they're very soft on you as well. But eggs are going to be the best. Then you have to go one more step and you say, is that person catabolic or anabolic? If they're catabolic, they can deal with hard-boiled eggs and fried eggs and stuff like that. All right, but if they're anabolic, it should be soft-boiled poached eggs, because when you fry an egg, you alter the protein structure, and a catabolic can happen. With a catabolic, you usually got to sort of you've got to slow it down a bit, and the give the body something to work on, and that's where you have more the hard-boiled eggs. All right, so when you hard-boiled or you fry eggs and stuff like that, that's okay for a catabolic, but not an anabolic. Anabolic, poached eggs, soft boiled. Because otherwise the anabolic is going to struggle to digest it. It might even cause heartburn for an anabolic. You might know some people that eat hard-boiled eggs and they get heartburn. It's too much. Yep. We're covering some wonderful topics here. This is great.
Yeah, a lot of really good info.
Yeah, it's lovely stuff. I love this. It's brilliant.